Going live. Spinny, spinny, spinny. You're live. Okay. So welcome to Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom number 167. Or 8. Whatever. Don't care. I'm your host, Greg Galb. The gang's all here with Luff and Jeremy and J-Rod and John and Courtney and Mike and Gary and Boone for the first time and Don and John and Bill and Garth and Phil and Dennis and Scott and Jim. Okay, and then Jerry and Gio and other people, and we're going to talk slot cars. Since Boone is on here for the first time, we're going to embarrass him by making him talk about his slot car related history. Take it away, Mr. Horry.
Oh, geez. Well, hi guys. It's taken me a while to get on here, but I finally got on here, Greg. So, yeah, I was exposed to slot cars at a really young age. My father was involved in racing, and it seemed like every other Christmas I was getting a new slot car track. But, that went on for quite a few years. And, it started out with just the old HO and everything else. And eventually we had an old Strombacher set as well. And as time went on and I started to get older and stuff like that, I, started to get into cars of a bigger stature than my slot cars. And it wasn't until here, probably in the last, say 4 to 5 years, I came back into, slot cars. And the reason for it is because I was getting bored. I needed something to do. I needed a hobby. And I actually was thinking about going into RC cars originally. And I saw a YouTube video that was with magnetic racing prior to actually.
Your internet. Sorry to interrupt you, Boone. You might not even be able to hear me. Your internet upload is speed is kind of slow for some reason, so I'm gonna just disable your video so that we can hear you more clearly. So hopefully you're still there. You might end up getting.
Oh.
There we go. Okay, so can you still hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so it seems to be working better now that I turned off your video, so I'm sorry. You probably want to back up a couple sentences and then take it from there.
So I originally got reintroduced to slot cars about 5 years ago. And what got me originally was I was looking through YouTube and I saw some videos on magnetic racing, and it was the prior owner of magnetic racing. And he had created a slotless kind of slot car track. It was really cool. And I was kind of proceeding that and not really finding anything. So I decided to, kind of looked into slots a little bit more. And then also I found digital. And that just kind of sparked, a whole different interest with it. And then I ran into slot mods. And when I ran into some videos slot mods, it just kind of hooked me. I mean, it was the idea of the whole entire experience, not just having a track on the floor, but having something that was, an experience. I mean, it's, something that like almost like the train guys as far as the whole entire diorama type of thing. And that's what kind of got me going into it. And after a while, I started kind of looking around and trying to figure out certain things on how to build and whatnot. There was nothing out there. So I started sharing some pictures and people were asking me how I was building certain things. And that's what kind of sparked the YouTube channel. My wife and my daughter started harassing me, telling me that I need to do it. And I started making YouTube video. I wasn't even, I thought that maybe I might get a few subscribers or something like that, or, I didn't. It was something fun to do, and it just kind of exploded from there. And the next thing I know, I've got this YouTube thing going on, and I've opened up a whole entire new world to myself as far as all these people and everything else that I get to, enjoy slot cars with. And it's really, it's cool. You know, I always joke that, you know, I'm a 51-year-old guy getting in touch with my 8-year-old, you know, and so it's, you know, staying in touch with that inner child. But, you know, it's great. You know, you sit around and you play with toys, and, you know, it's fun stuff. So, you know, it's just kind of the way that it's all been. And, you know, now it's really cool. I mean, it's amazing how what's happened in just the last couple of years as far as the hobby as a whole. I mean, it seems like it's starting to really get a rebound. You know, a lot of people are starting to see the hobby, starting to experience certain things, and it's kind of going through a rebirth. And I think that's really cool. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much my slot car experience. You know, now it's, you know, I'm doing obviously the YouTube channel with scenery and stuff like that. I've done a lot of scratch building, but a lot of people don't know that I do scratch building because they see the scenery and stuff. So yeah, it's cool. It's just kind of taken on a whole entire, you know, movement by itself. So it's cool stuff. I'm glad to be here, you guys. Thank you very much for letting me join your meeting today.
Well, I'm glad you could join us, and hopefully you can join us regularly on future meetings. And your story is very similar to most of us as far as the slot car stuff. Maybe not quite so much the YouTube, you know, fame, but yeah, you're with.
Except you're in the lower part of the demographic. I just want to advise you that you're a youngster, so just be advised.
I'm 51.
see, Greg's a youngster too. There you go, another youngster.
We're babes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming, sir, and I'm sure we'll hear from you more. So let's get started with some show and tell. If you have anything slot car related you'd like to show and tell about, now is the time to raise your virtual hand by tapping your screen, tapping more, tapping reactions, tapping raise hand, however it works on your device. I'm going to do a quick little news kind of show and tell. If you are on Slot Forum, you may have seen my post from last night about different Carrera digital analog switch boxes that have recently come to market. Most people are familiar with the Tech Slots box. That's been around for a few years now. Usually sells out right away on whatever shops it appears on. He's still making them slowly but steadily. So if you want to get your name on a waiting list for a Tech Slots box, you can go to Tech Slots on Facebook. I put a link here on the Slot Forum post. Jim Cunningham's Omni slot box that he showed us quite a few meetings ago. The Tech Slots box is a chipping the lane solution. So if you're not familiar with that, basically it's using a digital chip to power the lane. So you don't have to put a chip in the car. You use your digital controllers to control the analog car. The Omni slot box, as they say on the post here, is the Rolls-Royce of digital analog switch boxes. It's a big old box with high amperage switches. It's made so that you can run any analog slot car with a high power supply and analog controllers and everything. So it's pure analog control, and then you got your pure digital control. But it's Rolls-Royce. It comes at a price. Two new ones on the market, not easily available, but if you get in on their list, you'll get one soon. The Axle box, Travis on That Slot Car Guy did a little installation review of that particular box. It's another chipping the lane solution, but I don't know much more detail about it. They have a Facebook page as well. You can go join the Axle box homepage for that. And the newest one that I'm aware of is the Digibox by WSCP. He's saying that his box is capable of running any analog slot car. And we had a little discussion on his post about that. And he's confident that his box can run any analog slot car, though it is a chipping the lane solution. So I'm certainly curious what magic he's done in there to be able to run wing cars and other high amperage cars with a Carrera digital chip so that you can use Carrera digital controllers, but he's figured something out. Join his group or follow his page or whatever to find out more about that. those are the solutions I'm aware of at this time. If anybody has any other solutions or knows more about any of these solutions, please feel free to comment on this YouTube video or go to Slot Forum and comment there. I'll try to remember to put the link to this post in the description. And that's about it. Anybody got any questions on any of those? Okay, pretty straightforward.
Handy breakdown.
Handy breakdown. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. That's basically what I was trying to do. All right, so that out of the way, Gio had his hand up first. Go ahead, Gio.
Okay, so a follow up on the Scale Auto on the NSX GT3. This is where I think we left last week. So this is the chassis that comes with the standard with this car. So it's these gray ones that it's a bit kind of on the soft side, I would say. Not a NSR like soft, but more like Thunderslot soft. So as I mentioned last time, basically I get rid of all the mechanical parts from Scale Auto and basically put my own things. So I'm using for these class, so these slotted pod angle winder one. And for the first time, I'm kind of put together these kind of different ways of doing suspension. So I've been buying from AliExpress, so these 10 mil long M2 screws, torque screws in the titanium. I have also these O rings. So these I think is 1 mil and these are 1.5 mil, and these M2 self-locking nuts, I think, whatever. And so basically I put them together in order to create kind of a suspension for the pod. And so what I do is I put the screw through and then these different O-rings on top of it, and then stop it with or stop them with the nut. And so depending, so the 1.5 mil are a bit harder than the 1 mil, and so kind of if you play around with that, you can have a different kind of strength of the suspension. And so as you can see, maybe you can see over here, maybe not. But what I'm doing is I have a softer in the front, so two 1 mil and one 1.5 in these two in the front, basically locking points, and then on the back I have two hards and one soft, I think. At least this was my initial setup. So another thing that you want to do when, you know, if you're gonna use oxygen for these cars or digitalize these cars. So the standard chassis comes with, so there are these kind of U channels for the scale out of suspension. I think they have all complicating things without any need. So there are, like in front of here, there are as well two of those U channels. I cut them off, so I have a clear path for installing the chip, and there is already a hole here that you can use for the infrared LEDs. So this is what it looks like once the chip is on oxygen B1 or B2. I don't know where they are now. So installed already. Not much actually, I mean to say over here. Yeah, so this is kind of the setup for this kind of suspension that I'm using, as you can see. So a bit of like close-ups, and also I'm using these silicone washer from MR slot car that Chris used them a lot. So I'm putting here, you know, the two kind of on the body mounting post for a bit of extra suspension between the body and the chassis, or avoiding too much rattling, basically. So this is the vac formed interior, so that I do myself, and it's already decorated with the painted actually. So with the roll cage bar, I had a bit of extra details inside. You know, they have like foam pads. So these I do with very thin heat strings. This is another side of it. And then putting everything together. So it's kind of 19.4 grams. So which is pretty good for a GT3 car of this class. And so this is the car on the track now, because I think the last time I showed like sitting on the sideways chassis. Now it's sitting on its on her own chassis. So this how it looks like. So as you can see, especially on the back, there is some bleeding, light bleeding that I resolved later on. So there is a lot of red shining through the vents here. The car performed, I did some testing. The car performed pretty well. So I kind of managed 5.59, which for my truck is very good time, but this without anyone else on the truck. So I raced last night with you know, during my normal kind of a racing session, was not going that quick, and the car is not that quick, but it's good. I mean, compared to what the others are running, so it was a very, very close racing until last time. So the car is pretty compact, right? I mean, it's not a huge car compared to all the other GT3s that are out there, and there's also very low center of gravity. And so as a kind of way of comparison, I want to compare this car, I mean, especially the guide to rear axle distance with a bunch of other GT3 cars out there. And as you can see, although the wheelbase is not as big as some of the cars out there, the guide lead is one of the longest one, if not the longest. Oh, it's up there. So these, for instance, compared with the sideways 720, these are with the BA 458, which is already a good car. So this is the Scale Auto R8, which is kind of, I think they scrap the dimension here, so it's a bit more compact than it should be. I'm very curious to see what Slot is going to do with this car. This is with the GTR. So as you can see, the GTR is big freaking cars, but the guide lead is very similar with the NSX. Viper, kind of, again, not the smallest car out there. There is a lot of overhang on the back, but the guide lead for the NSX is a bit longer, and so on and so forth. I mean, so this with the M6, another big car from sideways. So you can see that the lead is very similar. NSR 720, again, similar. And this with the Bentley from sideways. And again, it's pretty kind of similar, if not maybe the NSX is a bit of extra lead there. And this NSR AMG. A couple of bunch of the cars. These are from 3D printed chassis with the manufacturer from, I mean, the body is Ascaletrix and the chassis 3D printed, the ones from Area 71. So, and these are kind of comparing with, I think this one is comparing with the chassis of the Vantage from Sideways. And this is the chassis of the Lexus from Sideways, and again very similar, although the Lexus is going to be a much bigger car. So the inserts that you get from Scale Auto are the wrong ones. I mean, they are basically manufacturing only one type of inserts for the GT3 car, which it's pretty wrong. So I'm using these are inserts that you can find from Slotted for the GTR, which is good to match. And I'm using the disc inserts from that comes with the kit with the car from Scale Auto. Just a bunch of close-ups. So this is a kind of a picture of the underside of the chassis. So on top of the suspension. So if I use the suspension as it is with these screws, there is a bit of back and forth movement from the pod. In order to eliminate completely this movement, I've used a bit of tape and create a good kind of level of flex, especially in the middle. So this basically the chassis all assembled with the chip and the all sensor position in it, and the light kit already there. So kind of bunch of more shots. And these are shots from after basically I have addressed the light bleeding from the rear lights. So I put liquid tape, which is black, and some masking tape to reduce some of the light bleeding Unfortunately, yeah. So I had to drill like holes, and the top LEDs here are kind of bleeding through. And yeah, I mean, I should have done something before putting it together, but screw it, I don't care. I mean, it's still okay. And this is the car as it looks like on the track. That's it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, later on when we do corners, I will talk about more how the race went last night.
Gio, I can't get over how much wiring you put into the cars. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So many LEDs.
It's a freaking nightmare. I mean, because after I put everything together, so those wires are 36 AWG. They are super thin with the 7 strands. So the wire stripper that I'm using, it's a very good one, but it's for 30 AWG. So which means every time I pull it, I'm pulling 4 of the 3 strands. So if you move it, slightly, the bloody things comes off, breaks basically, especially when it goes to the soldering stuff, when you do the LEDs. So I don't know, I lost count how many times I have to repair it. Plus, from the fog lights, so there are 2 fog lights, 2 LEDs, one on top of each other. And I messed it up. I mean, I just put the 2 things together. And what happened is that it was working properly. And then I think I kind of, fix a bit better with the masking tape. And then the positive side of one of the LEDs was touching the negative side of the other one, creating a short. So basically, the front lights were not working. So what I did, I almost redo completely the front loom. So I just like the soldier everything and just checking one by one of the 8 LEDs, and then I find the problem of it finally. So yeah, so basically it's
It's
a
like
lot
it's
of
like
work, but
it's like slot car dentistry. Yeah.
kind of, yeah. But if you have the right tool, so now I bought recently I bought a wire stripper for 36 AWG, and man, that thing is fantastic. Now, I stripped and I start checking, so counting the strands that I had, and I can manage to get 7 now. So I don't know if it's gonna be any better, but yes.
You mentioned that on track it wasn't strikingly better or worse for that matter than your other cars with different types of suspension. Would you repeat this? Is it more economical? Is it easier to install? Are there any benefits to this?
Okay, so it was so when I said that it was not performing as well during the race, what I meant was that it was not as quick as when I was racing by myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a suspension thing. It's mainly, I don't know. I have to kind of investigate what's going on there. But one thing that I can say is that this gray chassis from Scale Auto, the front holders for the axle are crap. So I used one for the Porsche, the Coca-Cola Porsche that I did a while ago, and I had to enlarge the holes because the axle was not rotating at all. This one, not as bad as the Porsche, but still it's not a free rotation. So what happens is that the car, I think it's kind of the front axle is kind of, I mean, I can see, when I set up like an NSR once and I rotated the front axle, I mean, it will keep going for at least 5 seconds. This one, 1 second, it already stops rotating. So which means that there is still a lot of drag. And that's what I think is a kind of, affecting the performance. So then you touch a bit or you have an off or whatever. So once you upset a bit of the front axle, then it can get a bit worse though. And so I have to do something. So, and one of the plans that I have in mind is to use those bushings that Chris suggested to put on the front. So I'm going to enlarge a bit more the holders for the axle and then put this stuff in and see how it will go. So a bit of work in progress. Plus the motor was also new, so I think it was kind of getting, although I run them in, but everything has to basically get, click together. And so the car was not, it was as fast as the others, but usually when I properly prepare a car, I can have a bit of an edge. So especially with the Bentley, I have an edge with the other cars. I can say that it's quicker. With this one, no edge. So very, very competitive with all the others. So which on my side basically makes me sweat more in terms of getting my wins. But yeah, I mean, it's also fun because you're not overpowering the competition, so which is good.
And it's fun to experiment.
Yeah. I mean, I think the suspensions are not that bad. I think this stuff, I mean, can be it's a bit harder than using the springs, but also does not bounce back and forth as a lot as with the spring. So it's more it's almost like using the foam suspension from Thunder Slot. It has that kind of feeling. So I want to kind of express. So some of the people on the slot forum suggested to use also springs to go outside it. So I have to understand a bit the science of it. So basically, you kind of it's like using suspension or shock absorbers with oil or without oil, right? So when you have oil, so there is a bit of, there is still the spring that gives the springiness, but the oil basically dumps down any extra vibration. And so basically you can use the washers as a way of dumping that vibration, but still the spring to have that extra, kick on it. So it's still work in progress.
Like coilover shocks on a car. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, very cool. Thanks for showing that off, and look forward to hearing more about that car and future suspension developments. And I think it's time for Jeremy to go. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Hey, our club is starting a Pioneer's Legend. So there's my Pioneer Legend wheel, if you can see. Now, a lot of the guys in the club are getting these wheels and they're all messed up. So I reached out to G&F Wheels and he created my own Pioneer wheel, which you can kind of see there. Of course, perfectly flat and round. But the one problem I was having on my own was when you center the axle and you push it in a weird angle sometimes, you get a messed up wheel. So I created a little jig for it. So the wheel fits in there and then I can push it in dead straight center. So that's not going to be a problem. I'm going to continue on here. This would be a Ninco wheel. You guys may be familiar with the Ninco Corvette. And I reached out again to GF Wheels, and he was kind enough to provide this wheel. And wow. That one, I know, that one's the exact same size. The back's a little different, but what I did in my request was I said, instead of the Ninco 2.4 millimeter, can you make that 3/32? So now I have a Ninco wheel that's on a 3/32 axle. No more screwing around with that stupid nonsense that they do. So those are all 3D printed, thanks to Garth. He is becoming quite a master at this. That is it.
All right. Awesome. Garth, where's your website? You need to. This is keeping it to like a few dudes. That's not cool, man. Spread the love.
I've tried to get him on that. I'll help you build the website. We'll collect the files. We'll organize it.
You guys could make tens of dollars.
At least tens of dollars, I would imagine.
Jeremy's my agent.
Yeah. I'm just the middleman.
Yeah. Well, in other words, he's going to become an expense.
Let me ask you guys that are technical racers. Have you guys tried the urethane or whatever the wheels are that come from Pioneer? What is it, like Pioneerethane or something? It's like something different. It's not rubber.
Yeah.
But are they any better? Are they any better than like a Scale Electric standard rubber? Like.
Yes.
They are. I think they are. Standard electric. Yeah. When we ran Legends several months ago, we ran stock tires all around, and they true fairly easily. Not like urethane, but better than NSR. And they take oil okay, and they have a fairly decent amount of grip on plastic and wood, especially on wood. But yeah, they're decent tires. Yeah.
I mean, there is nothing worse than Scalextric's rubber.
No,
Carrera. Maybe Carrera.
Carrera.
We know Carrera is the best out there.
Oh, but let's not forget about Fly. Their tires.
Oh, what about Auto Art?
Oh, wait a minute. But with an Auto Art car, you have to get it around the track to see what the tires are like first. So good luck with that.
Exactly.
But
anywho.
But reach out to Garth if you need a different wheel. something may. I mean, they're just amazing. The work he's doing.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, those look awesome.
Yeah, they're so far so good.
I'm gonna post Garth's email on the description so that everybody can inundate him with wheel requests. Okay, Garth?
It was nice knowing you, Garth.
I'm gonna ignore him because I don't want to hear the no, and I'm gonna put Scott on the podium now. Go ahead, Scott.
Hi, everybody. If we'd scripted the link, it couldn't have worked better because what I wanted to share with you was, you may remember I've been buying what I think is highly effectively late night on Sunday on eBay. So last week I got 4 cars for 40 quid. And the most expensive one was only 11. So what's that in dollars? I don't know, something like, I don't know, $13, $14. And it is an auto art.
Of course it is.
It's now this thing was absolutely brand new in its box. I could tell the box had never had the cardboard folded back before. Now I'm quite a fan of auto art in the sense that they make beautiful models, and everybody says, yeah, but they don't run. Well, I have to say, you take the magnet out, because I always do, put it on the track, and it runs beautifully, as do the other ones I've got. And amazingly, these tyres, and I don't think the camera is going to be clever enough to pick up the tread, they've got loads of grip. Now, once it breaks traction, it waggles around like a caught fish, but because I think the chassis is just so stiff. But if you keep it within the bounds of the stickiness of the tyres, it'll pull a really quite a fast lap time on my polycar track. Anyway, I was delighted. It's such a lovely thing. It's sort of shiny, and even again, if I could, the photo etch on the engine cover, you can just make out there's sort of some engine detail under there.
No,
So I mean,
They're
Scott,
beautiful cars.
they make lovely. Oh, sorry.
I'm just agreeing with you, John. They make beautiful bodies.
Yep. And you're also fortunate to get a later one where they actually put drivers in the cars, because if you get the Miras, there's no drivers in them.
Yeah. And I think that's a hangover from their die-cast days, isn't it, where they wouldn't put drivers in something. In fact, it's interesting, given that how beautiful the model is in terms of the detail right down to that tyre tread. Again, I don't think you guys have... The quality of the modelling of the figures is pretty basic. I mean, the driver's head has been painted that he looks like he's wearing a World War I flying helmet. Anyway, that aside. So it was just... it's provided me with a lot of... And I say all for the princely sum of 11 quid. I was delighted.
You couldn't get the motors for that. You couldn't get the motors for that.
John, this is my theory, which is a year late and not yet proven, is that the sort of basically the economic catastrophe that we're living through and interest rates going up, and also it must be said the demographic of slot car racers and collectors means that there's probably going to be a lot fewer people buying cars and a lot more people selling collections, and therefore it may be a very good time to buy. If anybody can afford to.
That's why on each of my cars, I left the price tag. So I told my wife, if you get 50 cents on the dollar, you're doing great.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd say this theory hasn't stood the test of practice yet, because I've been to a couple of swap meets, and I guess even on eBay, the price of good second-hand stuff, not really old stuff, but it's good second-hand stuff, it's all gone up. So now, whether that's the traders being optimistic or whether that's the sellers being optimistic, I don't know. But the last couple of weeks, I've managed to pick up a few bargains.
You make a very valid point. It's whatever, people are optimistic, and you can ask anything. Doesn't mean you're going to get it, right? I mean, that's like my dates in high school. But I mean, you got to really worry when you go to swap meets and stuff, when the widows show up at a table, right? That's when we have problems.
Having not long ago been divorced, I'm going to say nothing about that.
And apparently the blind squirrel of auto art found an acorn when they made those tires, because I've never had, I mean, I only have a few auto art cars, but None of them had
Well,
any.
Yeah, it's the same. The last one I got was they're all 911s to me, but the 911 GT3, the presentation livery, which eBay was awash with for a while. I don't know whether there was a truck got lost on the way to the shop or something, but again, similar situation. Very grippy, but as soon as you break traction, the thing just slides because the chassis, the tire wall is so stiff. There's no give in it. But I say I know I'm slightly unusual, and I love road car, slot car models. I think they've got a place. Anyway, thank you for that. That was a bit of a contrast to what went before and all that racing and tuning and soldering and stuff. So lovely to see.
All kinds of slot cars are welcome here.
But yeah, we're all going to keep our eye on eBay, because if Vinny and the boys get a truck with a load of that stuff, they're going to be going real cheap.
Yeah, I shouldn't boast about it, should I?
Hey, Greg.
I have a sneaking suspicion that the magic ingredient in Scott's success there may very well be his polycar track.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that'll have an effect. Yeah.
Greg, I've just noticed we've got another newbie on this morning. Lenny Broke from Adelaide's finally come on after watching us on YouTube for a few months. He should do an introduction,
welcome.
I think.
I was just messaging him to find out if he was wanting to do an introduction.
Yeah,
but
put him on the spot, mate.
Now that you've called him out, I'm going to go ahead and put him on the
About
spot.
time I got something back on him.
Lenny, this is your time to tell us all about Lenny's slot car related history, how you got started, how you got back into it, and what kind of racing you do.
Good morning, everybody. My name's actually Alan. I'm in Adelaide, South Australia, on the North Island, as opposed to the South Island where Phil lives. Only one. I run a track in my back shed we call Spitfire Model Raceway. I've got a gang of geriatric delinquents that turn up every week, about 9-10 of us. We race 30-second scale stuff like slot it, NSR, bit of scratch building, scaletric sort of stuff. I built the track myself. I've got a Facebook page called Spitfire Model Raceway. And I started slot racing when I was about 8, when my mum and dad bought me a scaletric set. It was just an oval with a chicane in it. And it went on from there. I've actually still got some of those bits out in the shed somewhere. And then I started going out to commercial tracks, one in Adelaide called Adelaide Miniature Raceway. Used to be in Pulteney Street, for those that know Adelaide. My track's actually modelled on the last track they had in there. I managed to find the owner of the original track, and he sent me some drawings, and we hand routed a track out of that. And I went through wing car racing, flexi car racing, womp racing, and now we're mucking around with ready to run stuff. That's about it, I guess.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me.
You're among friends and brothers.
Yes.
Well, thanks for joining us.
I'm just lurking in the off to the right here.
Not sure about the friends thing so much.
She's known on the forums as Mrs. Broke. Somebody pretty with that. We've also been involved with proxy racing as well. So I ran the last Tasman. I'm trying to get myself organised to get it going again. Yeah. And been involved with proxy racing with Phil. Go down to Tasmania every couple of years and for the Baskerville Historic. So if you're going to Tasmania, make sure you're down there in September. Is it, Phil? October?
Yes. You coming down this year?
No, not this year, mate. No, we're going up to Queensland this year to visit the family.
Oh, you've been overruled this year then.
Yeah. Oh, there's a big birthday coming up, so we've got to go up to that.
No worries.
So yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, if you're going down to Tasmania, make sure you ran in time for the historic meeting there at Baskerville. Great place. You can see the whole track. Once you get up on the top of the hill there, you can see the whole place.
Yeah, it's a great event.
Isn't it?
It is, that's for sure. Bruce, it's a credit to Bruce and his organisers.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. I've been tempted to go and flag there, but I've I've decided I'm retired from that now. So used to be a flaggy for about 35, 40 years. So yeah.
Very cool.
All right, that's about it for me. I'll get out your way now and just sit and watch.
All right. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Greg.
And
Thanks for bringing me in.
look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Yeah, I'll have
And-
something to show next time. I'll be a bit better organised.
Yeah.
Look at what we do. It's
Get on
Switch on the
there.
Raceway on Facebook. Okay, thanks.
All right. All right, Dewan, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first, Scott, I just wanted to ask you: was that Skill Auto a four-wheel drive, or was it a regular rear wheel?
The auto art.
I know it's two-wheel drive. Just a
Two-wheel
so
drive, okay.
yeah. So Sidewinder.
Yeah, about three of those four-wheel drivers. But anyway, my show and tell is real simple. Based on Dennis Sampson's suggestion, I finally got this.
The metallic aluminum.
Yes, it just came in this afternoon, and I haven't had a chance to try it out yet. I just had to
Okay.
wait.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna see how that works.
That was our first question, so you're wasting our damn time. No. Looking forward to seeing the results on that for sure.
Actually, it's pretty good. It's not quite as good as Molotov or All-Clad, but it's very close.
Okay.
And a lot easier to use.
All right. I was gonna wait till after the club corner stuff, but I had a couple other little questions, and we can come back.
You know
on
what?
those
Go ahead.
too.
You're on the floor. Go ahead.
I brought up a few times before best practices for different types of components and things like that, and had reached out to one of my colleagues in the Far Out Club, and was asking about the different types of glues that he was using. And it was Michael Smalley. I don't know if you guys know him, but I know Dennis, you know him. A few other people that's in the club know him. But anyway, he had suggested this particular glue as a type of glue that I don't know if you can read it. It's a Zap. What is it exactly? It's a Zap gel, and it's got a part number PT26, and that. And then I also picked up another one by Zap as a PT27 for jewelry primarily. But I was basically, instead of going through and running the gamut of different manufacturers, if there was some people had suggestions on things that they've tried that didn't work, as well as things they tried that did work. And again, that long list of ideal things to use.
I'm curious about that Zap glue. What he recommended Zap glue, but for what usage?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah. I'm repairing some broken parts on the cars. I have some broken wings. I have to put some spoilers back on. And
yeah, don't use for body works. Don't use anything that is CA based. So use that stuff that I use is the GS Hypo.
GS Hypo, yeah, I've started using that. It's pretty good stuff.
I'm sorry, let me write that down. GS Hypo.
GS Hypo, HYPO.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat here.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
a clear. It dries clear. It's used for securing wristwatch crystals, and it's often used in jewelry making and things like that. It does not have an initial tack, though. You've got to be careful to make sure that whatever you're putting down is going to stay in position, because the glue itself doesn't really hold it in position very well.
Well, I mean, I don't completely agree with that. I mean, it's pretty tacky as glue. So it's almost like a show glue.
When you have young fingers, Gio, you can do lots of things. Us old guys have a problem with that.
I find it sets up a lot like a translucent silicone, and you can actually rub it away if you want to remove it.
Yeah, you can.
Well, yeah. So basically, don't do it when it's still drying. So once basically is the stuff is completely dried after 24 hours, you can remove it, but it's very, very hard. And so one of the nice things that I like about this glue, and I use, for instance, for all the clear parts for LEDs, is that you can undo it and does not leave any residue, but it's also very elastic. So whenever crashes or whatever, it takes like champ. So, you know, I put like mirrors or wing with that kind of glue, and no huge problems. Of course, I mean, depending the kind of level crusher that you might have, it will come undone, but it's one of the best glue out there.
How long does it take to set?
But I would say maybe a couple hours. But you know, usually I try to do stuff I mean, it's not like CA, right? That you can accelerate, unfortunately. So if you have to repair on the track, it's a different story. But I have to say, sometimes I do kind of put a car together, not together, I mean, some small parts, maybe half an hour before a race, and the stuff has been healthy without or holds up without any problem. So it's the best glue. I do all my body works, I do with that stuff.
I'm being like John Weber or everybody else who's got a background. So I just got a 4-pack of this from Amazon for like, I don't know, $10 or something like that. It's not expensive at all. And I would compare it to a thinned shoe goo type glue. So like Gio was saying, it takes a while to cure because it basically evaporates the chemicals that are making it liquid. But then it's flexible still. In fact, and it's nice that it's got a needle applicator, and then the cap has a pin that goes into the needle to help keep it from, hardening or leaking and plugging and stuff like that. But sometimes
you need a good set of eyes to make sure that
yes,
you can get that pin back in the tube.
Yes, I put my geezer goggles on every single time. But what's really kind of cool is it'll still leak slowly, and you pull the cap off, and there's basically a cap-shaped piece of it, and so you can see how rubbery and elastic it is after it's cured, and that's not even fully cured. It holds real good once it's fully cured, but like Gio says, you can get it off. The only downsides I would say is because it's thin, like Dennis was saying, it's hard to put the glue on and put your thing together and have it stay. You've either got to let it start to cure a little bit so it becomes tacky. In fact, the instructions kind of mention that. Let it become tacky before you put the things together. But then it'll hold it because it's like, other liquidy glues that, start to cure and get tacky, like cement, like rubber cement, kind of.
There are instructions. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I read some instructions.
I've never bothered to read them.
It might have been on Amazon where I bought them because I'm
Probably
looking at
on the tube, but I've never bothered.
Yeah, I'm looking at the tube. It doesn't actually say the whole cure a little bit, but I read that
Dennis,
somewhere.
as an engineer, we would expect no less. Instructions?
Yeah, we don't need no damn instructions, right? Yeah.
The real reason I like it is the main reason I like it is that needle applicator. The main reason I like it is because of that needle applicator. I want to do and stuff like that, and I'm like using a toothpick to try to get it where I want it.
It's wonderful when you're putting in glasswork and screens and things like that, where they have a little ridge around it that it's going to pop into. You can get the glue in there really well. Get a very nice even bead all the way around, then pop the screen in, and if you manage to get the screen in first time and you get it in the right spot and you have enough patience to leave it alone, like Gio says, for an hour or two, then you get a perfect result, right?
Yep.
If you're like me and you're going to go and try and paint the damn thing in the next 5 minutes, it's going to be maybe a little different.
Yeah, I have the same problem because I use this glue for all the LEDs as well. So yeah, so basically, I'm not that patient. So, I want to just finish the bloody LEDs installation. So, but every time, if I don't let one of, so basically, I put like tape or whatever to try to hold in place. But it's better that you do something else. So put the bloody LEDs,
hot glue
else.
for LEDs. Although, of course, you're worried about the weight.
Yeah, and also like I can put the glue straight into the lens, put the LED, and I know that it's gonna cure clear, and I don't have any problem.
Yeah, that's true. I did something else the other day. I'm busy. Dewan, are you done? Because I'll just pick up on that glue thing. I'm busy with I was busy putting two lighting kits into cars that are going to Australia to a guy who's on the call today. by name Lightning. And they're the Fly Vipers. And the Fly Vipers have headlights, the little flat headlights at the top. They have, one of them has 2 center lamps right in the center of the hood, right at the front. And then both of them have what looks like a brake vent duct up front, a round brake vent duct that's in the bumper that actually carries a headlight when they're done. And I looked at that thinking, what am I going to do with those? And what I used there was I used 2 little 3mm, the regular 3mm LEDs, and I dribbled a little bit of that UV curing resin around them, held it in position, shone the little UV light on it, and it sealed it perfectly. It worked really, really well. It doesn't stick to the LED. So from the back, I still put a little bit of other adhesive just to ensure. But the way that it filled in the area between the LED itself and the slightly bigger hole was beautiful, because that stuff's very liquid. So you get a very nice, smooth fillet around that. And so that was excellent. And talking about LEDs, I just want to share something and see if I've got it here.
Cool.
No.
I think UV glue has become one of my favorite glues alongside the GS Hypo. I highly rate the UV glue. I really enjoy using it too.
Yeah.
What brand do you use?
I use
some of it
AliExpress,
is,
whatever
you've got to
get
remember,
cheaper.
some of it is glue and some of it is resin. And so the stuff that I use is not really very sticky, but there are UV curable
Yeah, thanks,
ones
Greg.
that are cyanoacrylate based.
Yeah. This one's Bondi. One of the guys
That's the
brought
one.
it down and
I
listed
use
here.
I use that for glue. That works great. Very nice.
One of our guys brought it and he can't get it to set. But I think the fact the battery and the UV torch on the end's gone.
Yeah,
But-
well, you can unscrew them, put a new battery in them.
Yes,
but then
I
the
know.
battery's more expensive than the glue.
I don't use it. I just put it in my wash and cure for my printer.
Oh yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
What I did was I actually bought a proper UV light source, a little pen light thing that takes 2 AAAs. And
Yeah, I've got
that
one of
gives
them
a
as
much
well.
stronger light and it cures the stuff a lot quicker. Okay,
Yeah.
let me just share screen. I wanted to show you something. Where is it? There we go. I know that Geo gets his stuff off AliExpress, but I got these LEDs the other day off of Amazon. And they're really tiny. There were 25 little warm white LEDs with a whole set of resistors. In fact, 3 sets of resistors for if you wanted to use them on different voltages. And as you can see with the picture of it next to a match head, they are tiny. And those little
Dennis, have you managed to get those with stranded cable, or is it single core?
No, it's single core.
Yeah,
But
I've used those.
That didn't worry me much. Anyway, so I just thought I'd let you know, I found those on eBay, and it but about $10 plus tax for 25 of them. It was a pretty good bargain, I think.
Yeah, Amazon doesn't know to ship over here, so we get straight from China.
Yeah. Okay.
I just shared on the chat. Very similar. They're the same Evan Designs. They've got 3 volt and 12. Yeah, thanks, Greg. They've got 3 volt and 12 volt, and I'm using the nanos in my 24 car for our enduro. And because they're so big, I just use the 3 volt battery, but you can do 3 volt or 12 volt, but they're not as cheap as Dennis's, but they do come, you can get all the different light colors too.
Those are nice. Thank you for that. Evan Designs. I just remember that.
Yeah, be careful with be careful when you use different colors because they draw different voltage as well. And so basically you might put like a yellow with the red, they don't work together that well. So
Yeah,
what I
they
do
have
is I
different
just
brightnesses.
I just buy white ones and then I color them with transparent and enamel, either green or all the color what that you see in my cars basically are white ones that I color them
Just
up
basically
with.
dip it in a paint pot. Yeah.
I don't dip. I just go with the brush, but basically that's the idea is to so that things get
I also
He uses one bristle and paints them one at a time, just like John does most of his models.
Yes.
True enough. Actually,
There's
talking about
a lot
LEDs,
of common sense to that because, like he says, the different color LEDs require different amounts of current. But the other benefit is that he's only got one LED to buy, one LED to stock. You never run out of what you need. Painting the white ones is the insider trick on that.
I mean, for the back ones, for the real lights, I use red ones, which they work pretty well with the white ones. So I never had any problem, at least for my type of light kit that I use. Any green, blue, yellow that you see on my cars, those are all painted.
I think I showed this before, but they're really tiny ones that I ended up getting at wish.com.
Is the insider trick on that?
You repeated yourself entirely, Wayne.
For the back ones, for the real light.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to show you the ones I got from Wish, and they're really tiny. And I used it to light up this. Remember that little trophy that I made? And lights it up quite nicely.
Cool. Better than nice. It's brilliant, isn't it? Yep. It's brilliant. Mine's grey, solid grey.
Yeah, well, I cast some in clear and then painted them and then lit them up and just to see what would happen. And that's what you get. But yeah, do you want a clear one?
No, I'm fine. I keep presenting the grey one to my own cars.
These are the LEDs that I'm using for these cars. So these are the smallest one that I've been kind of soldering to. So you can see these are the front lanes of the NSX.
NSX.
And basically 2 LED. I mean, you need the three LEDs basically to fill the lens. And this basically was, you can see in situ now how small they are.
Oh, wow.
And I soldered them myself. So these ones.
Gio, Gio, you put the LED, I guess, attached to the body and then put the lens on top, right?
Yes, yeah. When I can, I do that. Yes, yeah. And so these LEDs. Go ahead, Dennis.
You soldered the wires on before you put the LEDs into the car.
Yeah, of course, okay. Yes. Otherwise,
you use the one bristle soldering iron too.
So these are basically
bristle soldering iron.
Say again?
He was saying you must use a single bristle soldering iron too.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you see my soldering iron, you're gonna be scared. I mean, I'm gonna show another thing later on, but yeah. You see with the professional equipment that I use, it's completely crap. But anyway, so what I was gonna say, these LEDs, right? I mean, you see how flat they are. So these are LEDs. I'm not the first one using them. It was a French guy on Slot Forum that used it for the SRC Toyota thing that he put on. You know that these LMP cars, they have very thin lights, especially on the back that has go on the wing. So I use these ones for that. And you know that Scale Auto is releasing the Le Mans hypercar. So there is a Porsche that it's in transit on UPS at the moment from Spain. And these LEDs are perfect for making the LED, I mean, the lights for these cars. So these could be, I mean, these are very interesting. So these are the smallest one. I mean, I don't agree that maybe these are the smallest one that I've been kind of soldering the wires on, and they are very, very cool, very, very bright as well for what they are.
Cool, very nice.
Can you not find those already on wires anywhere, Gio?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but because I prefer to use, so usually when you go small, it's like for Dennis, you get these single core ones, and I I don't like them. I mean, because I think they're too thick and not very flexible. Although you can play with that.
And
I mean,
heavy.
a bit heavy on the heavy side. So I prefer to, given that I have these 36 AWG wires that have 7 cores, basically. I mean, I prefer to use that. So yeah, I can.
Me too. The single core ones, if you plug it in the light kit repeatedly, you're constantly flexing the cables and you can get fatigue breaks.
Mm.
I thought you would have cut the number out and put a LED behind the number, just like the real one.
Yeah, but this one, because I didn't build it myself, so this is already painted. So they've been really difficult to put behind it, and I could have done it. I mean, I know Tamar does something like that, but I want the car to race. I want the car to race, so basically I didn't bother with that. So yeah, what I did was to simulate. So these cars, the IMSA, they have like a small screen on the side with the numbers that gets colored, like especially during night racing. Sorry that I'm going. So these stuff on the real cars, it's kind of lined up. I mean, in Europe, we put them usually on the front windscreen, but IMSA basically puts on the side, and these they get light up in green. So I try to simulate that when I put these LEDs behind this grill, and the effect when you're racing and you see the car going away, it's similar. I mean, it's not the same thing, but sometimes it's a bit of a artistic liberty, I would say. I don't know. How would you call it? A license. Artistic
license, yeah.
I'm not an artist. I'm just bullshitting, but you know what I mean.
Some would argue with that.
Also, you can call a bullshit artist. So that's okay.
All right.
He has a lot of patience, that's for sure.
Looks like we're done with show and tell. So unless anybody else has any show and tell, you wave your hand at me. Okay, so let's move on to Club Corner. If you have any racing things you want to talk about, now's the time to put your hand up so I don't forget to get back to you and talk about racing things. I'll talk a little bit real quick about EMSA, Analog Club Racing. The guy that bought my portable digital track several weeks ago, I had said I was going to invite him to racing, and I did, and he came last week. I don't know if I mentioned it last week, probably not, but he was a past commercial slot track racer, so he had some trigger finger in him. So it only took him didn't even take him the whole night to get used to the cars that we were driving, and he was already chasing us around and getting first, seconds, and thirds on some of the heats. Night before last, we were at Russ's track, where the cars have even more grip, and he was doing even better. And he picked up on the fuel stop thing at Russ's track like that. Everybody's like trying to help him and stuff, and like he's just pulling straight up under the light, stopping perfectly, taking off at the right time, managing his fuel, getting fast laps. I'm like, all right, everybody, stop helping this dude, because no, not only does he not need it, but we don't want to help him anymore. He's gonna be knocking us all down the podium in short order.
Ban him, man. You should ban him.
Ban him, yeah. He already bought a Mosler. Next series, starting this coming Monday, we're running NSR Moslers. We've never run them as a series, so a lot of guys either had to buy a car like me or change their car to meet the spec, which happened to be inline, 10-27 gear ratio, and it's because the guy who nominated the car, that's what he had, so that's what his nomination was. But so many people wanted to run NSR Moslers that's the spec that got adopted. So I bought one that was already ready to go with inline. But a lot of the guys had to get parts and everything. But I know that the new guy is just gonna take to that like a duck to water, and he's gonna be just creaming us all over the place. It's gonna be like, yeah. So the good thing about that is he might be knocking our current fastest driver down a peg or two. which never hurts. But yeah, we had a good time at Russ's, as always. That's pretty much it, quick and dirty for me. And I'll talk more about him next week, I'm sure. He's going to wipe the floor with us. All right, Gio, you got your hand up. Anybody else who wants to talk about club stuff, put your hand up or wave at me. I'll make sure to get to you. Go ahead, Gio.
Okay, so this is from last night racing. I don't know if maybe I didn't mention because yeah, last time there was no time. But so we have a new guy that is joining us, James, and so he's racing the Porsche here. So we had this is already second time that we have 7 people on the track. So usually we have like 5, 6 on a good night, but now James seems pretty hooked up. So he showed up yesterday as well. He's still kind of learning, but getting there. So he's a video gamer and he works in the video game industry. So for him, all the digital aspect like pit and non-pit, I mean, that's kind of super easy for him. It's just like a driving that needs to kind of being fine-tuned. So last night, as I said, I raced for the first time the NSX, and this is the lineup that we had for the night. So we, as usual, we start with doing a 5 minutes practice, and so we start with a full fuel tank, which with the simulation, basically the car is a bit slower, and then the more fuel you use, the quicker the car goes. It was a bit of, yeah, all the night was a lot of mayhem. I don't know. I mean, 5, it's the perfect number, but when we go over 5, then the number of crash basically grows exponentially. Okay, so the results of after 5 minutes kind of racing, practice section are over here. So these, the practice, the qualify, basically things are sorted out by best or quickest lap. So as you can see, Alex with NSR 720 got 582, which is very good for the night. Jan with sideways 720 586, which again is pretty good. And my car didn't break basically below. That is during practice didn't break below the 6 barrier. So which I was already thinking, this car is gonna be really crap to race tonight. But we'll see what happens. And then the rest, with the team. So basically Terry, Mike, and our new guy, James, it's in yellow here. Okay, so then we line up the cars for qualify. So qualify is again 5 minutes, but this time instead of starting with the full tank, we go 50% tank, so which basically we have a bit more time and end. And of course, you have to do the quickest lap and hope that while you're completing your lap, nobody crashes, because when someone crashes, then there is a truck call and everything stops. And I can tell you that how many times I lost count how many times basically I had to nailed up my lap and then someone crashed and the car will stop just before the crossing the line. But that's basically, life. Everybody's kind of had to deal with that. And so during the qualify at the end of the session, we got Alex with a 5.7, although I think that this was a 5.7, but he kind of came off at the end of the main straight. And unfortunately, with this software, I cannot delete best laps. So you get what you get. And mine was a 5.85, and then followed by Jan. So we are kind of pretty close. And then for all the what they call AM drivers or kind of amateurs or kind of people coming up, let's say, everybody's above the 6 second marks. And again, quite close fight between these 3, and then James on the back. So this is the lineup or the grid for the start of the race. So following the qualify session, this is what we got, and the results at the end. Sorry for the blurry or semi-blurry pictures. So over here for you guys that don't know, so these are the number of damage points. So as you can see, this is not usual for us. So these are how many times each of us came off, right? So James 33 times. It will improve during the night, but was still 33 times was quite a lot, over 40 minutes. Then we had, I kind of 7 damage points here, but I think 5 of them were caused by others. Either you get, pushed from the back or from the side, or you die when there's a truck hole, your car stops on a dead spot. It's a damage point. So I had to repair. So my first pit stop, basically, I was running third when I got inside the pit stop, and both Alex and I think Jan, they were leading, and they also had a very good kind of they had good luck while pitting, because they stopped and there were a lot of truck holes because people were crashing. So which means that they can still go ahead with the procedure, but they don't lose any time because all the others are kind of stop dead on the track. And I didn't have any luck on the first. On the second pit stop, instead, I managed to kind of repair as well while there were truck holes. And that's why kind of with the 3 minutes ago, I managed to come out in front of both of them. And basically I won for just 1 lap. I mean, it was super close, not a big difference there. Usually it's not this close. So James basically talking with the other guys, I mean, with the Terry, Mike, and Mike, they were telling him, if you get around 90 laps in 40 minutes is a good mark. So he got here 77, so almost 80. But his goal for the night then was to try to get as close as he could to the 90 marks. So this is the lineup for the grid for the second race. So this race was a bit cleaner. Myself, I just came off once, and this was because I did something stupid. I don't remember exactly what, but was caused by me. Jan was pretty close behind. And Alex, I don't remember if he had the problem or just bad luck with his pit stop. He had to repair, and Combi with his M6 basically managed to get in front of him in 1 lap, so which was good, the third solid place. And as you can see, James kind of improved a little bit on his laps. So still during race 1 and race 2, you can see his Porsche going slowly around the track. So when you're approaching, who is the back marker. So you have to prepare to overtake. But during the night, his kind of pace improved. So at one point, I was not even sure that I was overtaking him. I thought I was overtaking some of the more experienced driver on how quick his car was going, which was good. So race 3, so grid again, and this time we drive in semi-darkness, so there is only 1 light on. And this race was kind of, again, I mean, I kind of had to repair, and I got a couple of damage points because of people pushing from the back, but I mean, it happens. And so I didn't have any luck in this case, and once basically I had to repair, and this was a bit off of my usual pit stops timing, let's say. Alex and Jan didn't give me any chance to kind of recover. And actually, yeah, so they had like a good race with 113 laps, which is a pretty good number considering the number of crashes that we had. James, then, as I said, he was improving during the night. So in his third race, 92 laps. So he managed to get his goal of going over 90 laps, and also he reduced almost like 33%, 35% is damage points. 20 is still quite a lot, but considering that sometimes gets pushed from the back from others, I think it's pretty good. So last race, everything in darkness, and it's a reverse grid. So I was starting here, and then Jan on the back, and Alex next to me, and James on the front. So I was still a bit, always a bit kind of extra pressure when you're starting from the front, because you don't want people run over you. So before this picture, so this is how we finish off. So again, it was not kind of best race for me, but still I managed to kind of get the lead, especially during the last pit stop. Again, I had to repair, so I had to damage points. Alex similar with what I had over here, and Jan was just 1 lap behind us. James again 92. laps, which is good. And the difference, so Alex and I were on the same lap, and after basically 14 minutes or under 7 laps, this is the difference. So I'm here, so this is Alex, so it's like I don't know, 1 meter, and this is Jan, so kind of 1 lap behind us, so pretty close. So overall, good racing. Still, I think, yeah, we have a lot of them, kind of a lot of crashes and stop and goes because of the track calls, but it's good to have more people in the pool. And the racing with the other, I mean, Jan and Alex, it's close. So if you know, make a mistake, then it's gonna be, I'm gonna pay dearly. I mean, it's very difficult to kind of get back on top, which is good.
And hey, you're almost at your limit. Once you get one more racer, you can't have more cars on the track.
Yeah, we have one more guy that usually come along, but not the reason that he might do. So we could be like reaching the 8 magic number.
That's probably more than enough cars for that track. All right, good stuff. Looks like Mike wants to share some racing. Go ahead, Mike.
Actually, I don't want to share any racing because I'm not at home. I'm in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah, you're on the road.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the road. I just got here about 2 o'clock or so, local time. And I wanted to ask Gio, in your qualifying, in your racing, do you do all the qualifying all at once, or do you do it separately?
No, everybody's on the track, Mike. So that's why if someone crashes, then it's going to be track call, and basically your lap is void, right? I mean, you have to start again from scratch.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you have to try to be in that sweet spot where, you know, everybody or almost most of the car maybe are in this case, like 3 or 4 cars are doing pitting because the fuel runs out within 5 minutes. So if you manage to be in the right spot where you have like 10% or 15% of fuel, which is almost like 100% of power, and 3 cars out of the way, then that's the kind of sweet spot where you want to be and where you can really nail it. But
yeah, so you've got fuel on them too, so it's it's different in that regard. Okay. What we usually do is we run 5 laps and everybody runs separately. And but there's only 3 of us, so it doesn't take much time.
No, I prefer to have although it can be very frustrating, but I prefer to have everybody on the track because I think it's more fun. So what with the digital, I try to have, as everybody has to race at the same time, so there is no waiting. Try to hide waiting. When you do analog where you have to wait, Marshall, I don't like that, but I can live with that. I mean, specific circumstances, but for digital, I avoid. Unless we're doing team racing, which is a different story.
Yeah, it's different. Okay, thanks.
Alrighty, looks like anybody who wants to talk about anything, the floor is open. So if you have any questions for any of the experts or anything that you want to talk about, now is the time. I'll see if I have any topics.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I have 2 questions. What do we call that red guide? Slot invasion. I'm getting some weird bumps on my track. Has anybody made any modifications of those for wood or anything to make them a little smoother?
I narrowed our tracks. One of the tracks is too narrow, so I put it on a flat grind and grind the edges off, and then coated it back with nail polish remover.
Why did you coat it with nail polish?
Just for smoothness. I was worried like burrs and stuff from that sanding would be rough. I'd rather have a flat, because nail polish kind of self flattens itself when you set it vertically or horizontally.
Okay.
That's just me, but I don't know how long it's gonna last. Super glue might do the same thing.
Aren't slot invasion guides basically a variety of guides for different types of cars specifically for Carrera track? Or do they?
Yes.
Yeah, for Carrera and wood usually,
They have a thicker guide base than most.
Yeah.
Right. I got them
And I-
anticipating they would be great, and I don't. Maybe I just need some more work on it. I'm not having a lot of luck with them at the moment.
What
So I didn't
track
know
are you
if I
running?
was.
I was going to say, what track are you running
Well,
and what
it's
is actually happening?
It's my wood track, and I have two seams that it almost comes to it hits really hard. So I've narrowed the front of it up, and I've tapered it this way, and it's still pretty drastic. Now I haven't messed with it much more. I've been gone, but I don't know. Maybe I need to narrow it up a little more. Maybe I need to make it a little more pointy, but it just seems weird to me.
It's already got a tapered. My one already had a tapered front, and that's
right,
one of the things.
Much so.
Yeah, it's got a hole shape to it.
And
quite a lot to
and
like
it's
about
only
those
the slot
guys.
invasion guides that do that.
Yeah.
Are your seams on turn? Are your seams in turn? Are your seams in corners?
No.
In no.
One's in this. They're both in a straightaway.
Okay.
They're both in a straightaway. And of course, I really like the sliding plus. I like that long guide. I like that thing a lot.
But it's a lot thinner than a slot invasion guide. Yeah.
When I ran a slot invasion guide on Carrera track, it wouldn't go down the slot. I had to narrow it. I ended up narrowing it to such an extent that it was nearly as thin as anything else.
Courtney, have you tried the scale out or red guide for wood?
Yeah, I tried one a while ago, but there was a couple guys were breaking them during the proxy, so yeah, I don't mess with those.
I've never broken a scale auto guide ever, but or had one broken during a proxy. Because for me to break a guide in a proxy is a little difficult. Yeah, somebody else is going to break it if it's on my car.
Well,
but yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, I would agree with Gio there. If you've got a problem with some sort of jamming in the slot because of the narrowness of the slot, then maybe the scale auto guide's the way to go. The 1604 or the 1603.
Yeah, so it's this one that has like screw to it's screw on. It comes also with a lot of spacers that you can use.
Yeah, there are two different ones with different post diameters, and there are two different depths. There's a 7 millimeter and an 8.3 millimeter.
Yeah, and the one
is the scale auto for wood.
Yeah, so it's the one that
8.3 is a forward, yeah.
Yeah, that I used in the Thunder slot when we did the 18K stuff that I kind of shaped as similar to the Thunder slot guide, right? And yeah, and that's also because that wood truck that we use the slot is it's as deep as I think the
that's a regular
electric.
Garth. What Garth's showing there is yeah, that's the 1603, I would think. Yeah, with the angled front. Yeah.
Besides,
I've got
Courtney, a bad driver can break any guide.
This is true. As Mr. Walker will say, we build a car for the worst driver. So
I do concur, however. I have seen scale auto guides get snapped at club level races.
Yeah,
they have a reputation for being a little brittle.
The slot invasion ones are going to be a lot better than that. Yeah, you could try a Franken slot as well, the yellow one.
Yeah,
but I think they're also pretty thick.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just need to play with it some more. But
I would be playing
I'm always
with
looking for a little bit of an advantage.
I would be playing with a chisel on the track.
Yeah.
Or rather.
Well, but
is it a Carrera car? Is it a Carrera car?
No, it's a Oliver. It's a 3D printed chassis.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be more slotted based, basically.
Yeah.
So are you sure that there's nothing like maybe the wires or such that the guide is being pulled one way or the other in the so that it's not actually running straight as it goes down the straightaway?
No, the guide is free and it's pretty smooth. I don't know. And I thought the same thing about the slot, because Tennessee, it's a little humid. And while I have the dehumidifier and the AC running and stuff like that, it's still a little warm. But every other car I put on the track, because that's what my first impression was. Oh man, the track is swelled up or something.
Mm-hmm.
Every other car I have runs fine through it, except that guide. So maybe it's just my track. I don't know. Just a thought.
Have you tried to
compare
a car just to see?
Try the guide on a different
car just to see what happens?
No, I haven't yet. That's another thing. I've got a few of them I need to try it on. So no, I haven't tried it on any other cars either. And this is a brand new build too. So
did you build that track?
No.
Okay.
Look at this. Do I look that talented? No.
It's really not that hard, but do you know what the slot was routed to, the width of the slot?
Oh, it's a standard width.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would have been routed with the 1/8 router.
It's usually that's what's common. Who made the track?
Some guy out of Marietta. He built the track in Marietta, Georgia. I mean, I run my commercial cars on it, so it's plenty wide.
Okay, yeah, never mind.
So yeah, no, that's why it's got me kind of thrown. But
you did start like on those edges there. You started sanding it a little or not? Like
I make those real thin because I want it down as low as
Yeah, okay. I just making sure you were getting on that.
Like I said, I just got to work on it some more. I don't mean to bring it up some more, but Dennis, I want to talk about that Apex 3-speed controller. I missed out on one of those on eBay the other day, and I know it's got enough knobs. It's got more knobs than a Canadian payphone.
I have a little show and tell about that controller if you want.
That'd be nice. You got it on hand there, Dennis?
Well, so basically I bought the latest version. So basically, Cortin, there are several versions out there, and so you have to be aware of which one you're getting. Okay?
Yeah, if you're buying them used, you better be aware of it, yeah.
Yeah. So I got this controller. I was it's kind of something that I've been hyped up to kind of buying for, I don't know, 3-4 years. So finally this year, I made the call because Paintball was kind of shipping them or kind of selling them. So I got the controller more than a couple months ago. So super happy, just hook up on my truck, started playing around with it. And then, out of the blue, the car was going full tilt, full speed, full power. And I was not pressing the body controller. I thought, what the heck? Maybe it was a kind of something wrong with the vibe, the trigger maybe, because I was using 2-speed controller for Scalextrics, and sometimes the trigger can be a bit of a messy there, causing troubles. So try with another car, and after a while everything was okay, and then again full power. And it was like also the controller has different LEDs, and when it's full power and brake on.
This is the analog controller. Analog,
yeah,
not
it's
digital.
analog. Yeah, it's the Apex. Yeah, so it's the top brand. Yeah, the top of the line. So what the heck? So another car, same thing. And what I noticed was that the car came off from the slot, then came back in the slot, and then went the full tilt. I thought maybe what's going on here is that because of my truck that I'm using for testing the controller is it's the Scalextrics digital truck that I converted to pure analog, and there are lane changers, and the lane changers basically they are like a dead spot. And so what I thought was that happening was that the braids going over the rails, they were sparking once in a while and basically messing up with the controller, because the controller is constantly reading what the car or the motor is doing. So I wrote to Pendle, then Pendle passed the email to Steve, the guy that basically do this stuff. And, you know, I was thinking like, oh man, here is my luck. You know, I buy this stuff, everybody buys it, and I have something wrong, or something wrong happens when I'm testing it. So I say, okay, don't worry, I'm gonna do some checking and then we'll come back to you. So after a couple of weeks, he come back to me and said, look, I find what the problem is, because also another couple of people are having the same issue. I said, okay, finally, it's not just me. But in order to find what the problem is, I need to kind of, you know, reverse engineering here the issue. Another couple of weeks passed by, and I took the controller to my pure analog truck that does not, the wood one, that does not have any dead spot, and the controller behaved properly. But still, you're a bit kind of scary that your car will go full power, because I damaged a couple of cars for that. So I come back to me and say, okay, I have the solution. So now there are two options. Either you send me the controller back, I will repair for you, or you can do the repair yourself. And I will tell you which part and stuff you have to do it. And they say, okay, I will try. I mean, if it's not a super shitty complicated like soldering stuff, I can try. And so this is where the show and tell started basically. He sent me like the schematics with the stuff that you know, I had to change and I replicate. So the first thing that he told me is that so this is the base one. So the controller is a free box, as a box, and there are 3 circuits in it. So this is the one of the circuits board. So basically, the stuff that is causing problem is this component here, okay? And decided you have to remove this stuff, and then you have to change also the resistor values for these 4 resistors over here, which actually are a bit more complicated than just the resistors. But, and then once you remove this component over here, you need also to bridge it. And this is what is showing me, right? So this, you have to create 2 bridges here. And then.
But do you like the control?
So did you send it back?
No, this is my question. I'm not anticipating any problems. And if I do, I'm going to send it to you, or I'd be happy to pay $75 Canadian for that controller.
No, the controller is good, but I'm gonna do like another show and tell about how the controller works. I mean, the controller is really cool. But you know,
I know Dennis likes.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that's 13 cents US. You know that.
Courtney, what are you using now?
Well, I've got a couple. My DeFalco is pretty standard, but I got a Mayak that I really like. And I bought it used, and I did a couple little tweaks to it, and it works really well. But I'm always looking. We're racing 32 cars on the big track now, and so I really like that. I think you and I talked about that anti-brake option, so I really like that. But I can't. It's hard to tell if that. I couldn't read anything if that Apex controller had it.
The Apex doesn't. Yeah, actually, it does have an anti-brake, but. I haven't ever found with a 1/32 scale car any need for an anti-brake ever.
Well, have you? I mean, we're running those long can motors, angle winders, and they just have. And we're running foam tires on them.
Yeah.
So they stop on a dime and give you 7 cents change. So I need to be a little more consistent.
Even when the brakes are turned down all the way.
Yeah, because it gets down there. It gets down there to the point, either on the DeFalco or on the Mayak, that it gets close enough that, you know, one band and you got 0 brakes and one band is too much. So you turn it up a skosh, and then you put the anti-brake on it.
Yeah. So you could have either the anti-brake or the release on it at some point. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And the Mayak has a hard and a soft setting as well, so you can set the brake a little heavier and run the soft setting. I don't know. I'm mad at myself because I missed that Apex. It was on for $400, and I forget I lost track of time and missed it.
Well, I think that $400 might almost have gotten you a new one.
Yeah.
Sorry, 250. It was 250.
Okay. Yeah, that's a better price.
The one I just missed the other day, I missed a S&K or it's something for 400, and I was, I don't know.
He's nearly as bad as me when it comes to controllers.
I'm learning from the best.
I love the brakes on the third eye. Absolutely love them.
Well, and I've heard people compare the Karstein to the third eye. Has anybody messed with the Karstein? That CS4.
That's a really good controller. The Karstein, the CS4, and if you get a CS4.2 that has the anti-brake, but I mean those are $800 new.
Yeah,
so it's an expensive thing to go racing little plastic cars with, but it's a very, very nice controller.
That is the one thing I like about the commercial track. We do a big race every year, and you have to use house controllers, and yet it makes a difference.
Yeah, probably would.
Challenge yourself with 2 wires, Courtney.
Yeah, or a doorbell button, right?
Fridge door switch we used to use years ago.
Controllers,
screwdriver between the poles.
Yeah,
alligator clips. I could solder some loonies together and do it that way.
Yeah,
we have the only dollars that you can actually electrify.
Yeah,
there you go.
There's one guy running with an Apex at Electric Dreams. He just won the race over the weekend, beat Rick Jocham and Eddie Shura and a couple of other guys. And he's a newer racer, but he swears by it. He says there's no way he will ever go back to his DeFalco. He, in fact, ordered a second Apex as a backup.
Are they available?
He ordered it direct from the factory. We are looking at bringing them. So, but they're not here yet. The thing that he speaks about the most are the interesting part is that the control box has 5 large dials on it and 2 or 3 small dials on it, little like trim pots almost. And he says those are the most useful ones.
Yeah.
And what those do that he finds very good is, for example, you have one big adjuster that will adjust your brakes, and it adjusts your brakes in the same way that it's a rotary switch. It's not a potentiometer, so it's very discrete. It's 12 discrete steps, but on those 12 discrete steps, you now have this other little potentiometer right next to it that allows you to adjust the speed at which the brakes are applied when you let go of the throttle. So when your trigger hits the stop, now you can determine how fast the brakes apply. Right? And I've never thought about that, but obviously for him, he finds it a very useful thing. And you may be doing the same, that you get to a point where one step is too much, is not enough brake or no brake, and the next one up is a little too much. And what you want to do is just slow down how quickly that's applied, and that might actually sort out what you need. The second one of those, there's a second little pot that's on the brake and release side, and where you can get the controller to apply the brakes, and then after a certain time release the brakes, and then the little pot adjusts how quickly it releases the brakes.
Yeah, so as Dennis says, so basically there are 4 main controllers for brake, and they simulate. One is the strength of the brake, and the other 3 is the action that you have when you are braking with the pedal. What you do is you have a speed at which you are pressing the pedal, how long you're gonna hold the pedal down, and then the speed at which you're gonna release the pedal. And so these are free controllers that you these extra knobs basically allows you to set at the speed at which you're gonna press, how long you're gonna hold, and the speed at which you're gonna release the brake.
So
And then on top of that, then there is on the controller, you have a switch on the handle that basically allows you to enable the coast. So which means that instead of braking, you have a bit of power. And there is an extra knob on top of that basically this controls the strength of the anti-brake. So how much extra power you wanna give, how much extra cost you wanna give to cars that have very strong brakes. So this basically, in a nutshell, how
Dennis,
it works.
do you think it'll work with the 124 car as well with I don't know, with a Hawk 7 or something like that?
Courtney,
the
there's a
latest
good
versions
sorry.
of the latest versions of the Apex are all rated for 30 amps continuous, so it should it'll handle a Hawk 7 or something like that easily. It will probably handle a Group 12 or even hotter than that without too much trouble.
Courtney, the other possibility is if that's the feature you're looking for, the anti-brake, get a hold of DeFalco and see if he'll build you an HO controller that has coast in it, which is essentially the same thing, or literally the same thing, but with the ohmage pots for 30-second scale.
Well, so do you guys know? You know Les Wright probably, don't you, Dennis? You know Les?
Yes.
So Les sent some flat track controllers out to the guys out west. I didn't get to try one, but he's working on some stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm just looking. I'm just looking.
Yeah, the ones that Mike Blevins is building.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. I don't know that they have anti-brake, or if they do, I haven't seen one yet with anti-brake. But it's probably there.
Discussed that. Yeah, we discussed that a couple of months ago. Sorry, Phil. Go ahead. Tell me what.
If you want to know any more about the Apex, there's a good breakdown on YouTube, mate. The builder's done quite a tutorial on YouTube there, so have a hunt for that and watch that, mate. It describes everything it does.
It's the same thing as reading the manual. I mean, what he's explaining is the same stuff. He was saying that he was going to make that, Steven, so I was going to do a video to explain how it works. But there is an awful lot of video on that, so which is a pity.
He's been too busy with other things, like building controllers.
Yeah. Because one of the things that I really like about this controller is that it has a very good manual that explains what the heck is going on for each knob. So it's very, very good.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and if you haven't used a TrueSpeed before, the quality of the parts is just really, really good. Everything is beautifully made. The wipers are probably some of the best that I've ever seen.
Just fill me in on this anti-brake business. I understand how it functions. I just have a question, which is, how the hell do you hold the car on the start line if it's got power applied?
It doesn't need to have much power applied. It just needs to have enough to kill the brakes. It doesn't need to have enough to power the car from a dead stop.
Yes, if it's adjusted wrong, it will go by itself. Yes.
Yeah, true.
So we're talking like a minimum drive might be, I don't know, 15-20% on an SCP3, for example, because below that the car won't move. So when you're talking about anti-brake,
no, but you're talking two different things. The car not
you're
moving.
Talking about applying a voltage that's like less than 10 or 15% that wouldn't normally set the car moving.
Right, exactly.
There's something else to consider, and that is that certainly under commercial racing circumstances, the car is never stationary when there's power on the track. In analog racing, it's almost never the case that a car would be stationary and have to be stationary without power on the track.
Unless you have like you want to use a false start detection, right?
Oh yeah, unless you have a power on start, but that doesn't happen at any level of ISRA, ISRA racing, USRA racing, commercial racing. It's all done power off, power on, controlled by the.
So everybody pins the throttle, and when the power goes on, everybody launches together.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's never any advantage of speed of response, and there's never any jump starts, and most of the skill of getting a start is taken away from you.
Yeah, it depends how you set up your car, because if your car is set up badly and you go full throttle, then your car is gonna wheel up and you're gonna smash in the kind of a crash at the beginning of the race.
It also depends, certainly from a start, for a race start, it depends where the start line is with respect to the first turn, right? The closer that the start line is with respect to the first turn, the more challenging a power off start becomes. And a lot of guys will only start on half throttle because of that.
Yeah.
Whereas some of us crazies will start on full throttle anyway because we think that we can get through there. And we're not always disabused of that notion, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The timing is different because you've never entered that corner. You're always entering that corner based on the full run of whatever straightaway it is. And from a stop with from a lane, from a start at the start line, you're entering the first corner at a different speed than you've ever entered before.
Mm-hmm. So there's quite a lot of that. I mean, if you haven't.
Dennis, do you use yours all the time, or is that your go-to controller, or what's your go-to controller today?
My go-to controller is the previous version of the TrueSpeed, which is the PWM2. I don't have an Apex yet. There was a
few of them for them.
There was a PWM1 a long time back, one of which I did have, which I've still got, but I've managed to fry the inside somehow. And then he brought out the PWM2, and now he's got the Apex, which is a further development. And I have two of the PWM2s. I use those an enormous amount. I still have an old Speed Shop modified Ruddock Ruddock DR40 that I use to drive 1/32 scale cars at Electric Dreams, believe it or not. And mainly because it belonged to a fellow by the name of Paul Cassens, and it was specially modified by the guy who made the Speed Shop controllers to run 1/32 and HO cars. And so it has coast on it and a whole bunch of brake adjustments that are not on normal controllers. I have a DeFalco HD30 that I use on King tracks because it has really good brakes and it has a very short trigger or a shorter trigger stroke. What else? I got a couple of others. But yes, the PWM2 TrueSpeed is probably my go-to controller most places for most cars.
Are you gonna buy the Apex, Lenny?
Yeah, as soon as they're in stock at Electric Dreams, and I can trade some of my work hour credits for a controller. So they're very nice.
Does the Apex controller require a battery?
No.
Just strictly track power?
Yeah.
There is no need of a battery on the TrueSpeed.
No, there's nothing there.
There is no any digital component. Was a cat. So do you guys want to see the repair work or not?
If you did it already, yeah, show it.
I did, yeah. So
I would not have attempted that. I would have said, nope, I'm shipping this back. Thank you.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing, right? I'm living in freaking New Zealand, so shipping it was gonna take like 3 weeks or whatever. Yeah. So just let me see if I can share the screen. So I say yes, okay, tell me what I have to do, and then I open the bloody thing, and so this is what you get inside. So there is so these are the two PCBs. Where on the other side of this one over here, there are the knobs that Dennis was talking about. So here you see, actually, yeah. So these are the two main kind of PCBs, and then there is one down here that's where kind of it is attached to the case. So so the components that I need to remove were this one, which is not a big deal. I have done plenty of these on digital chips, so but yeah. So and then the other one that I had to remove were these one. These are 3 or 4
little surface mount resistors. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's it's a resistors with on top there is a diode as well. I say get rid of both components. Yeah, I don't know how it does that, but yeah, get rid of both components and change with this other type of resistors that he gave me the parts. So for these, I think it's the same thing. Yeah. So this basically removing these components actually is not that bad. I mean, maybe the trickiest one is this one, because I do the trick with the solder iron, go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But this one is a bit hidden, so it's a bit trickier. The other 3 were not a problem. And for removing this component over here, basically I use the trick of 2 solder iron at the same time, in order then to flip it, which is a pretty easy. Then clean the pads, then put the bridges. So these again, you do like a twist, a kind of fine wire put on. And yeah, so also this one I had to kind of bridge these instead of resistor, bridge these resistor, these 2 pads basically. I mean, yeah, it's not really the best. And now, yeah, it's basically putting the thing together. So I think these, yeah, so basically these after I installed the resistors back in position. So these are the 4 that I need to put in place.
That's some serious neurosurgery, man.
Yeah, they're tiny, those things. They really are.
Yeah, they're tiny because I think 0.8 by 0.2 mils. So they're very small.
And they're no smaller than the LEDs he's already doing.
I was going to say, it's
kind
those
of
LEDs.
But I mean, once you have like a good pair of or good magnifier, it's not that difficult. Honestly, I mean, and you need basically also good flux, and good and a decent soldering iron. And you don't need anything crazy. Maybe good solder as well. Fine one, and then so basically said once you change, so basically once you get rid of this component and then you fix these you're changing the resistor value, then there is another thing that you need also to, if you want to kind of fine tune. So over here, so he has this kind of in some of the version he uses like trim pot to trim the resistance value for this controller here, but he said I got rid of that and I'm using this specific value over here. It's 47. So I said, if you really want to fine tune the controller, because it says it's a kind of now should be performing even better than before, you have to change this one with one of those resistors that you used before. And because I bought hundreds, because that's what you get from RS or whatever, you cannot buy small amounts. So yeah, I have plenty of those little MFs. So I put them in. And this is what is all about. I'll put it back, and now the control seems working okay. And now I asked him another thing, because I said, look, when I switch the cost on or off, there is the bloody switch is so small that you cannot really see. I mean, yeah, you can see if you look closely, but there is no kind of good indication. And I'm saying this because I was playing with it when I was home. And then I went to the truck, the analog truck, and for, I don't know, 1 hour, 1.5 hours was running with the cost basically button on. And sometimes the cars were behaving strangely. I said, what the heck is going on? I was thinking it's the controller, it's not behaving because this was prior the repairing. And then was basically the bloody cost that was on. Instead of braking, the car was going like crazy. And so I get this kind of twitching behavior. I say, oh shit, I wasted 1.5 hours with the cost button on. I wrote to Steve, I say, is it possible to kind of on the switch to kind of try to install an LEDs that when I'm switching either position, at least there is stuff on and I can see. And so we are negotiating that. Another thing that I asked is that the controller also has a top speed knob. So if it's like if you put it to the minimum position, it drops the voltage that you get to the car from whatever it's. So assuming that your truck is running 12 volts, if you put this stuff to minimum, it can drop to 11 volts. And I asked him whether I could make any modification that would allow me to drop even further than just 1 volt or whatever it is. And say, yes, so you have to change a little resistor that would allow you to do this. So this is something that I'm gonna do or attempt next for kind of improving or kind of having a bit more control over the how much power I can reduce on with that controller. So this is something that will come up next. But I think the most important one is having that LEDs or that an indication that that cost function is on.
You brought another good question to my mind there, Gio. When does anyone ever turn down the full speed? Why?
Yeah, so I mean, we have like 5 seconds plus in our analog thing, and that would allow you to fine tune the speed that you want to go. Or if you have like a tricky section in the track where you can fine tune or reduce the power, but the controller, the handle, there is a button that is called the boost. And what that button does is basically bypass whatever reduction you have in that top speed and gives a full power. So if you are Andy with basically playing with the buttons, so what you can do is you can go to reduce the speed across the difficult section of the track. And when you're on the main straight, press the boost full power and the car will go at full speed. So because I think Greg also does this, I mean, when we're playing with the Scalatics, we had like a brake button enable instead of having a full brake when we're releasing the throttle. The brake for us was you have to press the button. So for me, this one, it's super easy to kind of to master. I mean, it's not going to be a big
so one of the 2 analog wood tracks that I've ever used has got a tight section that leads out to a downhill sweeping right-hander. Is probably the largest radius corner on the track. And in some cases with some cars, when they're really good, you can come out of that tight section and basically pin it and watch it go round. With most cars, you can't. If you do that, you're going to push this thing into a slide. And I should imagine that facility would be useful there because you could come out of that complex section and then pin the trigger with more of your cars and just watch it go around that long sweeper and then hold the boost button for the rest of the lap.
Yeah. And that's one of the cool things. I mean, I don't know, maybe other control have this function, but I'm not aware of. So the fact that you can bypass the reduction of speed through that button, I think it's a unique feature of this controller. Maybe others have.
Is that feature on the PWM too?
Yes.
Oh, I must learn to damn well use mine then, because I haven't used that at all.
Yep, it's on the PWM too.
I know that there's a facility to turn it down, and I've never done it because I've never used fast motors with it. But to be able to use the boost button and the turn down together, I think that's going to be my next experiment.
It's the button on the back of the controller.
I'm fully familiar with where it is and what it what it does, but I've never actually used it that way.
Oops.
Read the
I use the
manual
PWM too, and I drive 18k scale electric motors with it. Honestly, it's like, why?
Yeah.
It's a waste of money then.
Now I'd turn everything up to 12, Gio. At least you can get to 12 with that one.
A waste of money for the running Scalatics car, man.
No,
No.
honestly, I did not have my own analog controller, and the case in my case was I need to get one. What is everyone using? Everyone's using this that controller. If you need, if you can't beat them, join them, kind of thing. It was either that or one of the other true speeds at 60, 70 pounds with the transistor. And I managed to find a second-hand one, and that was it. Decision made.
You crank it to 12, that's even more than Spinal Tap. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's exactly right. That's why I always have a giggle.
That's what I was going to say.
And on that note, it's 2 hours in. I'm going to hit end stream, and we'll keep chatting as usual until next week,
Yeah.
everybody. Bye. And
All right.
ending now. Bye, everybody.
Good to see everybody. I'm